Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I always thought moving day would be one of those chaotic but exciting milestones everyone talks about. But the night everything went wrong at the Wendy's off Redwood Avenue proved to me that some beginnings come with warnings you can't hear until it's already too late. And I guess the backstory matters, because if you don't understand how exhausted and frustrated I was that night, you might think I exaggerated what I saw or let my imagination run wild. But I swear to God, every detail I'm about to tell you is burned into my memory like the grease stains on that store's tile floor. Anyway, my girlfriend and I, her name was Lila, and we'd been together almost 5 years, had finally decided to move in together after juggling separate apartments and crazy work schedules, and that afternoon had started out promising until the movers showed up nearly 6 hours late, looking like they'd already done 10 jobs before us, then somehow managed to take all our stuff except the things we actually needed overnight, muttered something about finishing tomorrow, and drove off at almost 11 p.m., with our sanity rattling around in that truck with our furniture, leaving us standing in the hollow echo of our half-clean new rental, surrounded by tired walls and dusty floors and absolutely no groceries. So of course we decided to grab fast food, even though both of us were running on fumes. Now, I grew up in Ohio, and Wendy's was one of those comfort places where the menu never changed and the fries tasted the same no matter which city you were in. So stopping at the closest one felt like the one easy choice of the night. But the Redwood Avenue Wendy's was weird the moment we pulled up. It looked clean, almost too clean, like someone had scrubbed it obsessively for hours. And when we walked in, the air smelled like bleach and old fryer oil, that sharp mix that hits the back of your throat, and the employees behind the counter looked dead on their feet, faces pale, eyes dull, bodies slumped like they were glued to the floor, and nobody talked, not even quietly. Which struck me as strange because Wendy's workers always shout something or at least mumble, "Order ready." But here there was nothing except the hum of the soda machine, and even then, something about the place felt wrong, in a way I couldn't name yet. The kid at the register, probably 17 or 18, stared straight through me like I wasn't even there, until I said, "Hey man, you guys still open?" And he snapped his eyes to mine so suddenly that Lila flinched beside me. And when he said, "Yes, sir, what do you want?" his voice cracked like he hadn't used it in hours, but I brushed it off because I was starving and tired. So I ordered a Baconator combo, and Lila ordered a spicy chicken, fries, and a Frosty. And while we waited, I tried making small talk by joking, "Long night for you guys," but the kid didn't answer. He just swallowed hard like someone was watching him from behind. And when he glanced over his shoulder, I followed his gaze and noticed a large shadow shift behind the stainless steel shelving in the back. But I didn't see who it belonged to. Then our food came out surprisingly fast, which I stupidly took as a good sign, until Lila sat down, unwrapped her sandwich, took one bite, and immediately gagged like something had crawled into her mouth, and she spit the piece into her napkin and said, "Oh my God, there's a hair in it," pulling out this long, wiry strand that definitely didn't belong to either of us. And that was the moment my patience finally snapped, because between the movers ditching us, and the long day and her being too shy to return food anywhere, I was done letting the world kick us around. So I grabbed the bag, stomped to the counter, slapped the receipt down and said, "Hey man, my girlfriend just found a hair in her sandwich. Can we get a refund or something?" But when the kid looked at the sandwich, his eyes went wide with real fear. Not annoyance, not irritation, actual fear. And he whispered, "Sir, please, do you really want to ask for a refund?" Like the words themselves were dangerous, which immediately chilled my blood, because no fast food worker reacts like that over a simple complaint. And I said, "Yes, dude, of course it's a hair. Just get the manager." And he hesitated for a long second before pressing a few buttons on the register with trembling fingers. Then he looked at the kitchen like he was bracing for an earthquake, and that's when she appeared. This massive, heavy-footed woman with thinning red hair, braided into loose, uneven pigtails, cheeks speckled with grease-triggered acne, her Wendy's uniform stretched tight over her stomach, and her face carrying this deranged mix of forced politeness and deep simmering rage, and she waddled to the counter and said in a sugary but unsettlingly cracked voice, "Hi there, sweetheart. What seems to be the problem on my floor tonight?" And when I told her about the hair, her expression dropped into something darker as she said, "A hair? In my restaurant? Absolutely unacceptable." And she snapped her head toward the kitchen, screaming, "Which one of you worthless strays dropped your filthy hair in this man's food?" And the entire staff flinched like abused animals, each one staring at the ground as if making eye contact would get them killed, and I stepped back because something felt wrong, horribly wrong. And when I leaned sideways, I noticed for the first time that their ankles, every single employee's ankles, were clasped in thin metal restraints bolted to the base of their stations, subtle enough to blend with the equipment but unmistakable once you saw them, and I felt this ice-cold realization crawl up my spine. They weren't tired from working a long shift. They were exhausted because they literally couldn't leave. Then the manager zeroed in on a skinny fry cook whose hairnet had slipped slightly, exposing a wisp of brown hair, and she stormed toward him yelling, "So you want to show off that mop of yours? You think that's cute? Think this is some kind of beauty pageant?" And before the kid could speak, she slapped him so hard he hit the fryer door. Then she grabbed him by the back of the neck, forced him to his knees, and started ripping fistfuls of hair out of his scalp, while he screamed, high-pitched and raw, begging, "Please stop, please ma'am, I'm sorry." But she kept going, tearing more and more until her fists were full of hair and his scalp was bleeding, and she dropped him like trash, panting, while every other employee stared straight forward like this was normal. And then she walked back toward me, strands of his hair stuck to her sweaty palms, and said, "All right, sweetheart, refund or replacement?" And that's when survival instinct kicked in, and I bolted, rushing to Lila and grabbing her hand, practically dragging her out of the building while she frantically called 911, and we waited outside near the car where I could see the employees through the window, each of them staring after us with this desperate plea in their eyes, like they were silently begging us not to leave them there. And when the police finally arrived, they arrested the manager, cut the chains, and escorted the employees out like survivors from some underground bunker. And the cops told us later that the woman had been forcing the staff to work double and triple shifts, locking them inside, punishing them violently for mistakes, and trying to maintain what she called the perfect Wendy's, because her father had owned one in the 80s, and she believed his spirit was watching her, judging her. And to this day, I don't know how many people suffered before we walked in, but sometimes at night, I remember the look those employees gave me, that hollow, silent pleas lingering behind their eyes. And even now that Lila and I are married and building a quiet life, I still can't drive past a Wendy's without feeling my stomach twist. And whenever I see someone walk up to a counter to complain about their order, I feel this urge to grab them and say, "Hey, trust me, let it go. You don't know what's happening behind that kitchen door." Because some places hide things behind forced smiles and fresh paint that you wouldn't believe unless you saw them yourself. And what I saw that night on Redwood Avenue will stick with me forever. A reminder that sometimes the cleanest places hide the darkest secrets. And sometimes the tired eyes behind the counter aren't just tired, they're trapped, waiting for someone to notice before it's too late, but we barely escaped with our own sanity intact. And every time I think about that woman's voice asking if I wanted a refund, I hear the quiet cries of the staff instead, echoing like a warning I'll never forget. And that's why I tell everyone now, don't complain about fast food. Don't push your luck with the wrong person, because you never know who's really running the kitchen or what hell they've forced the people behind the counter to live through. I always thought the Wendy's on West Oakland Road was the safest place in our whole town. The kind of spot where nothing bad ever really happens. The type of place where kids on bikes parked out front. Old folks sat in the booth near the window, sipping senior discount coffees. And teenagers like me and my friends spent late nights eating cheap fries we couldn't afford anywhere else. I was practically raised inside that Wendy's. My mom used to take me there after every parent-teacher conference, good or bad, and it became a weird ritual in our family. She'd order her baked potato, I'd get a junior bacon cheeseburger, and she'd tell me in that half-disappointed, half-proud voice how I needed to get my act together, but at least you're still trying, sweetheart. When I hit high school, the place became our Friday spot. Me, Luis, Rhea, and Jason. We'd crash into the plastic seats, dump our backpacks on the booth, order Frosties even in winter, and laugh about how this was the only fast food joint where the soda machine didn't taste like metal. But everything changed last summer, and I mean everything. I don't go there anymore. None of us do. And just thinking about that glowing red Wendy's sign makes my stomach twist like I'm swallowing ice water. Every time I drive past it now, the hair on my arms stands up because I know, deep down in my bones, that place isn't normal at night, and what happened to me wasn't some random accident or misunderstanding. It was planned, intentional, and the people who did it knew exactly what they were doing, down to my name, my car, my habits. And the scariest part? I never saw any of it coming because I was too distracted by the kind of face you don't forget and a voice that could make anyone trust her. It started on a Saturday night in late July, the kind of humid, sticky night where the air feels heavy, like you're inhaling warm syrup. Luis had thrown a small get-together at his cousin's place. Nothing crazy, just beer, music, and dumb conversations about who looked like they were failing summer classes. I remember leaving around 1:20 a.m., tired enough to feel the world tilt slightly, but not so wasted that I couldn't drive. Luis begged me to crash there, said, "Bro, just sleep on the couch, you look cooked." But I brushed him off because I felt fine enough. And besides, I was starving. I hadn't eaten since noon. Wendy's was usually open late, until 2 a.m. on weekends, but they'd been closing early recently because of staff shortage and overnight safety protocols, as the sign on their door said. Still, I figured I'd take a shot because the craving was too strong, and when I'm hungry, I get irrational. When I turned onto Oakland Road and saw the parking lot lights still on, I remember actually grinning to myself like an idiot, tapping the steering wheel, thinking, hell yeah, they're open. Maybe the universe is finally on my side. The drive-through lane had one car in it, a dark blue SUV that looked like it belonged to some soccer dad or Uber driver. I rolled in behind it, humming along to the music playing low on my speakers, that half-drunk, half-sleepy bliss, where everything feels safe. When the SUV pulled forward to the pickup window, I reached the intercom. The speaker crackled like it always did, but then this bright, cheerful voice, not the usual bored dude, said, "Hey there, welcome to Wendy's. What can I get started for you tonight?" The tone was way too upbeat for 1:45 a.m., but I assumed someone was just trying hard to get through their shift. Yeah, I said, leaning toward the mic. "Let me get a bacon double stack, fries, and a Coke." "Wonderful choice," the voice replied, almost sing-song. "Are you sure that's all? We've got some fresh nuggets I can add on for barely anything." Normally I would have made a joke about impulse buying at a drive-thru, but I was hungry and tired and didn't want the upsell. "Nah, I'm good," I said. "Just that." "Perfect," the voice said softly, almost warm. "Go ahead and pull up, sweetheart." Sweetheart. Nobody at Wendy's had ever called me that. I shrugged it off, rolled forward, and stopped at the first window, the payment window, though it was usually closed at night. Except tonight, it wasn't. The blinds on the inside snapped upward, and the glass slid open with a clean swoosh, revealing a girl who didn't look like she belonged anywhere near a fast food restaurant at 2 a.m. She had long reddish hair tied in two low pigtails. Not cutesy, more messy and grown. Freckles dusting her cheeks, a black Wendy's visor slightly tilted, and a disposable mask covering everything from her nose down. Her eyes, though. God, her eyes. Bright, focused, like she'd been expecting me. "Hey," she said in a voice so smooth it cut through the sleepy fog in my brain. "Are you paying with a card tonight?" Yeah, I muttered, handing her my debit card. She took it gently, her fingertips brushing my knuckles. And for some reason, that tiny touch sent a weird shiver up my arm. Not a romantic shiver, more like a cold, uneasy one you feel when something is just slightly off. She kept the window open as she turned away to run my card, and while she was doing that, I glanced in my mirror and saw another car pulling into the lane behind me. At first, I thought it was the same model as the SUV in front, the same dark blue, same roof rack. But when I looked closer, I realized it wasn't similar. It was identical, every detail. Same scratched rear bumper, same little American flag sticker on the back window, same dent near the left taillight. My brain was too foggy to process it, but something inside me felt heavy, like a warning trying to surface. The girl returned, holding the card. "Hey, she said with a little nervous laugh. "Your card's not letting me process the payment unless you enter your PIN. Can you reach over? The keypad's kinda stuck." She held out the card reader through the window, but only halfway, like she wanted me to lean closer. "Sorry," she added. "I know it's annoying. Could you maybe open your door? It doesn't reach all the way." Normally, something like that would bother me, but her voice was warm, hypnotic, almost apologetic, and I thought she was just trying to help me get my food faster. So like an idiot, I cracked open my door, already leaning forward, reaching out with my arms stretched awkwardly to punch the numbers, when I heard something, just a tiny sound, behind me. Like a car door clicking open. I barely had time to turn my head before everything happened at once. The SUV in front of me suddenly popped its rear doors open. The identical SUV behind me did the same. Out of both vehicles, masked men in dark clothes stepped out fast and quiet like they'd rehearsed it 100 times. One grabbed my half-open door and slammed it onto my foot, the edge crushing against bone. I screamed, but the sound never left my throat because another figure swung something, metal, hard, into the back of my skull. I saw sparks explode in my vision, felt my knees give out, and my last thought before darkness swallowed me was that the girl at the window wasn't screaming or calling for help. She was just watching, like this was exactly what she'd been waiting for. When I woke up, dirt was pressed against my cheek, cold and damp. My ears were ringing, vision blurry, head pounding like it was cracked open. I tried to move and realized I was lying in a shallow ditch behind the Wendy's, half hidden by weeds and trash. My shoes were gone. My wallet was gone. My phone. Everything. My car wasn't in the drive-thru anymore. The lot was empty, dark, silent. Even the Wendy's sign was off, the building looking dead. For a few seconds, I honestly thought maybe I died and this was some weird limbo. But then the pain hit me, sharp, ugly, and I knew I was still alive. Somehow. I limped to the back door of the Wendy's and banged on it, hoping someone inside would hear, maybe call the police. But nobody answered. Nobody was there. The place looked abandoned, lights out, chairs flipped on tables like it had closed hours ago, which made no sense. When I finally made it home, walking barefoot almost 2 miles, I burst into the living room where my parents were half asleep on the couch, freaking out that I hadn't texted. My mom screamed when she saw me. My dad grabbed his keys, and within 20 minutes, I was in a hospital room with a concussion, a fractured toe, and bruising across the back of my skull, shaped exactly like the metal edge of a hammer. The police came, took my statement, and gave me the same expression they give everyone who they think is overreacting or drunk. But I knew what I saw. I knew what happened. And here's the part that twists my stomach the most. When I checked my bank account in the hospital, every dollar was gone. Not spent in stores, not used randomly, withdrawn, every last cent. Someone had used my debit card to suck my account dry. And the girl at the window, the one who smiled at me with those bright eyes, was the only person who ever touched that card. The cops claimed they checked Wendy's security footage, but all they told me was the cameras weren't recording during that time frame. Yeah, right. For weeks I kept replaying the moment in my head. The vans, the girl, the fake friendliness, the exact timing of everything. It was a setup, a coordinated hit. They knew I'd come. I knew I'd be tired. I knew I'd trust a friendly voice. My story went semi-viral on local forums, and people told me their own freak experiences. Strangers staring at them through the drive-thru window at night, unmarked vans lingering, workers acting weirdly eager to get customers to lean out of their cars. One guy swore someone rattled his door handle while he waited for food. Another said the Wendy's worker whispered, "Don't stop here after midnight," like she was warning him. 3 months have passed, and the Wendy's on West Oakland Road is still open. Same hours, same menu, same glowing red sign of that smiling girl with pigtails. But you couldn't pay me enough to go back there, because I'm certain, absolutely certain, that the people who targeted me are still out there, still using the drive-thru as bait, and somewhere inside that Wendy's, maybe behind the counter, or maybe behind the tinted window, that same red-haired girl is still working, still smiling, still waiting for the next idiot like me to pull up hungry at 2 a.m. The next person who won't see it coming until the van's open, until the hands grab them, until the hammer drops. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving home and I pass that Wendy's, I swear I see her silhouette at the window, watching the road, looking for someone she recognizes. And I pray she never recognizes me. I always thought the strangest things in life happen to other people. The folks you overhear at diners talking about that one night back in '87, or the guys at the auto shop swearing they saw something messed up behind a gas station at 2 a.m. But I never imagined I'd carry a story of my own, especially not one tied to something as stupidly ordinary as a Wendy's. Yet every single time I see that red-haired girl on the sign, smiling like she knows something I don't, it hits me in the stomach like a punch because it drags me back to the summer I turned 18, back when Ridgewood Springs felt like the whole world, and I was just some broke kid trying to figure out my life while working part-time at a hardware store and pretending I wasn't completely lost. And every night on my way home, I'd stop at the Wendy's on Old Maple Road because it sat right at the intersection where the street lamps flickered and the air smelled like fryer grease mixed with humidity. And inside that Wendy's was a girl who made the whole miserable summer feel like it had purpose. Her name was Riley Turner, a 20-year-old shift lead with messy auburn hair she tied back with a cheap black scrunchie, freckles scattered across her cheeks, and a voice that sounded like someone who'd been tired for a long time but still tried to smile anyway. And I guess I gravitated toward her without even realizing it, stopping by at least 5 times a week just to order the same Baconator combo and crack stupid jokes that I hoped would make her laugh. And somehow they did, because she'd always lean over the register and go, "Boy, you know you're gonna die at 40 if you keep eating like this." And I'd say, "Yeah, but at least I'll die happy." And she'd roll her eyes and smirk like I wasn't completely hopeless. And over a few weeks we built this weird, quiet rhythm. Me showing up after work, her sliding me extra fries when the manager wasn't looking. Both of us pretending it wasn't the highlight of our day. But soon, I started noticing things that didn't feel right. Like the way her hands shook sometimes when she reached for the cups, or how her eyes darted toward the back office whenever her boss stepped out. A short, stout man named Gary Holt, who had this greasy mustache and a way of speaking that felt like he was constantly chewing on his own frustration. And one night when the dinner rush slowed down, I heard him hiss at her near the soda station. "You're late again, Riley. Don't make me repeat myself." And she muttered, "The bus was delayed, Gary. I literally told you." But he cut her off, slamming a tray on the counter and snarling, "I don't care. You're lucky I haven't replaced you already." And the way she flinched made something hot crawl up my spine, but I didn't say anything because I was just some dumb teenager with no authority and no spine, though I sure pretended otherwise when she walked over to take my order and I said, "You good?" And she forced a half smile and said, "Yeah, just the usual BS, you know how it is." But I didn't, not really. Not until everything spiraled into something I still wish I'd never seen, something I'd give anything to forget. It started with the sign, the big Wendy's logo above the building, the one with the smiling red-haired girl. Except one night I realized it looked off, like her smile had shrunk just a little, or one side of her face drooped. Or maybe it was the lighting, I don't know. But it unsettled me in a way I couldn't explain, like seeing a family photo where someone's expression is just slightly wrong. And over the next few days, I kept noticing small changes. A darker shade of red in the pigtails, a faint crease near the eyes, shadows around the corners of the smile. Little things no one else seemed to pick up on, and I kept telling myself I was imagining it until the night everything snapped. I walked in late, maybe close to 10:45 p.m., the place nearly empty except for some trucker eating chili near the window, and Riley was the only one at the counter, looking exhausted in a way I'd never seen before, like she was carrying a weight too heavy to hide, and I joked, "Rough shift?" But she didn't even fake a smile this time. She just murmured, "Can you wait like just 5 minutes? I want to talk to you." And her voice shook enough to make my stomach drop. So I nodded and sat down, watching her glance nervously toward the back office where Gary had been holed up since I arrived. And finally, when the trucker left, she walked over, leaned across the table and whispered, "I'm quitting after tonight. I swear to God, I can't take him anymore." And I asked what he did, and she hesitated before saying, "He's been following me to my bus stop. Keeps saying weird shit like how I owe him for all the chances he's given me." And before I could react, before I could tell her to call the cops or let me walk her home, the office door slammed open and Gary stormed out, face flushed like he'd been drinking, and yelled, "Riley, I told you no breaks." And she jumped like she'd been struck, mumbling, "I'm not on break, I was just..." But he cut her off, grabbing her wrist hard enough that she gasped, and I stood up so fast my chair screeched across the floor and I shouted, "Hey man, let her go." but he whipped his head toward me with this wild look in his eyes and barked, "This is none of your damn business, kid." And something in me snapped because I grabbed my phone and said, "I'm calling the cops." And he froze for a second, then slowly released her wrist, glaring at me with a hatred so intense it made me take a step back, and he hissed, "Both of you stay right here," before storming into the office again and slamming the door so hard the windows rattled, and Riley whispered, "We need to go, like now." But before we could move, the lights flickered, just once, but long enough to make both of us look at each other in confusion. And then a faint humming sound began coming from outside, low, vibrating like electricity running through metal. And I turned toward the windows and felt my blood turn to ice because the Wendy's sign had changed again, drastically this time. The girl's smile wasn't a smile anymore, but a stretched, warped grimace. Her eyes seemed sunken. Her cheeks looked uneven, like the face was collapsing inward. And the red hair looked matted, darker, like real strands instead of paint. And I whispered, "What the hell?" But Riley grabbed my arm with a trembling hand and said, "Don't look at it, please don't." And I said, "Why? What's going on?" And she whispered, "He's been messing with it." And I said, "Who? Gary?" And she nodded, adding, "He keeps going up there at night. I don't know what he's doing, but every time he does, the sign changes. And he keeps saying the store needs a real mascot, something people will connect with, something more alive. And I swear he looks at me when he says it." And before I could respond, the humming got louder, vibrating through the windows, and the lights inside flickered again. And from the back office, we heard a metallic clatter followed by Gary shouting something we couldn't understand. And Riley said, "We're leaving." But as we moved toward the exit, the lights cut out completely, and the whole restaurant plunged into darkness except for the sickly red glow from the sign outside bleeding through the windows. And in that glow, I saw movement. A shadow shifting near the front doors, thin, long, jerky, like someone dragging themselves forward. And Riley grabbed my hand so tight it hurt and whispered, "Don't move." But the shadow twitched like it sensed us, and a faint wet sound reached our ears, like something sticky peeling off glass. And then a figure stepped into the red light. Something small, child-sized but distorted, with long, stringy hair and a face that drooped like melting wax. And in a voice that sounded like it was trying to imitate a child but failing horribly, it whispered, "Order, ready." And I swear my heart stopped because the face, despite being twisted and sagging, looked horrifyingly similar to the Wendy's mascot, and even more terrifyingly similar to Riley. I felt her nails dig into my arm as she choked on a sob, and the creature twitched closer, jerking with every step like its bones were bending the wrong way. And from the darkness behind us, Gary yelled, "It's not done! Get away from it!" But the thing turned toward his voice, its head cracking sideways with a sticky pop, and it let out a shrill, glitching giggle that made every hair on my body stand up. And before I could react, it lunged toward the office door with impossible speed, dragging itself like a marionette pulled by broken strings, and Gary screamed a raw animal scream that cut off abruptly like someone flipped a switch, and Riley finally snapped out of her frozen terror, yanking me toward the emergency exit, and we bolted outside into the humid night air, sprinting across the empty parking lot without looking back. And I didn't stop running until we reached the gas station 2 blocks away, both of us panting, shaking, crying, trying to make sense of something that had no business being real. By the time the cops arrived at the Wendy's, the place was deserted. No Gary, no creature, no power, and the sign was completely normal again, smiling innocently down at the officers like nothing had happened. But inside the office, they found a smear of dark, unidentifiable sludge on the floor and a single red hair tie tangled in it, the same kind Riley wore before she dropped it while running. The investigation went nowhere. They called it a breakdown-induced hallucination. Said Gary probably ran off after vandalizing the place. Said we were stressed teens imagining things. But Riley left town the next day, and I never saw her again. Though sometimes late at night when I'm driving on the interstate and I pass a Wendy's, I swear the girl on the sign looks a little too real, a little too familiar, like her smile is sagging just a bit, like she's trying to pull her face back into place. And every now and then when the lights flicker, I hear that awful voice in my head whisper, "Order, ready." And I floor the gas pedal until the sign disappears from the rearview mirror because I know, deep down, that whatever Gary tried to make alive that night is still out there, still looking for a face to copy. I'm still hungry for someone who looks just right. I got the job at Wendy's out of necessity. I didn't want to be there, but life doesn't always care about what you want. I needed the money, and that's all that mattered. The smell of burnt grease clung to my clothes no matter how many times I tried to wash them. The floors were always wet, always, thanks to the endless spills and grease that no one had the time to clean up properly. The lights buzzed and flickered above like they were just barely hanging on, and every corner of the place felt dirty, even if the surfaces were wiped down and the floors mopped. The fluorescent glow only seemed to amplify the grime. The people working there all had that same tired, defeated look. We weren't trying to build careers or pursue some higher purpose. We were just trying to survive, to get by. There was a single mom working there, a guy who had just gotten out of prison, a quiet college kid who never said much. And then there was me, a guy just trying to make it until something better came along. We didn't like each other, but we didn't hate each other either. We were just trapped in the same hole, pretending everything was okay, trying to survive the grind. The manager's name was Daniel. He looked like the type of guy who'd been sent from corporate to keep us in line. Clean uniform, perfectly styled hair, the fake smile plastered on his face like he was an overpaid actor. At first, he was polite and nice, a little too nice, like he was trying to show us that he was different from the rest of us. But once the customers left and the store was empty, the real Daniel showed up. The smile dropped, and that's when we saw the monster beneath it. Daniel was a dictator in disguise. He would walk around, looking over everyone's shoulder, watching our every move. He would snap at people over the smallest mistakes, make us do the simplest tasks over and over again, and bark orders like we were nothing. His words were sharp and cold, and the way he looked at us, with that condescending smirk, made it clear that he thought he was better than us. The tension in the kitchen was always thick. We all learned quickly that the best way to survive his shifts was to keep our heads down, move fast, and talk as little as possible. The moment you stood out, the moment he noticed you, that's when it got bad. And if you made the mistake of speaking up, God help you. One night, after the last customers had left and the store was nearly empty, Daniel decided to put us all through some team building. He made us line up in the kitchen like we were soldiers being inspected. Then with a straight face, he told us that the company wanted us to smile, just like the Wendy's logo. He said it was part of the brand. The brand. He told us that we needed to smile like the damn logo, that it was part of our duty as employees. He wasn't kidding. He made us stand there, lined up in front of the grills and fryers, and smiled. Just smile. It didn't matter if you were tired, if you had a headache, if you hated this job, none of that mattered. You had to smile. At first, everyone tried to go along with it. We all did, even though we were exhausted and hungry. But the longer we stood there, the harder it became to keep that smile on our faces. The muscles in our cheeks started to ache. Some people started to twitch. Others couldn't hold it in anymore, and their smiles dropped. That's when Daniel would snap. If anyone's face shook, if they dared to stop smiling, he would smack the spatula on the counter. The noise was loud enough to make you jump every single time. And that was his thing. His way of keeping us scared, keeping us in line. "You're not doing it right," he would say as his voice turned colder. "You're breaking the brand." And so, the rule became an unspoken law. You smiled or you stayed late. You complained or you went into the freezer. No one wanted to risk it. It was easier to fake a smile than face the consequences. But even then, no one was ever truly happy. The smiles were forced, the eyes hollow, and the air in the kitchen heavy. I'll never forget the night Marlon stopped smiling. Marlon was one of the quiet ones. He'd been working there longer than any of us, and he had the same tired eyes we all did. But one night, his smile just gave out. He couldn't take it anymore. Daniel noticed immediately. He marched over to him with that smile, the one that didn't reach his eyes. "What's wrong with you, Marlon?" he asked, his voice low. "You broke your smile." Without waiting for a response, Daniel grabbed Marlon by the arm and dragged him into the freezer. The door slammed shut behind them, and I could hear nothing but the hum of the fridges and the sound of the fryers. No one said a word. We all knew what was happening. When Marlon came out 15 minutes later, he was pale and shaking. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His face said everything. We all pretended like we didn't see what happened, but deep down, we all knew that whatever went down in that freezer was beyond our comprehension. The breaking point came the night I made the mistake with the burger. I was wrapping it wrong, pickles on the wrong side, nothing major, but it was enough to set him off. Daniel walked up without a sound, his gaze cold, his smile tight and fake. He stared at the sandwich like it was a crime. The tension in the kitchen was suffocating. Then he grabbed the burger, smashed it on the counter, and sauce splattered across my shirt. His jaw twitched. He leaned in close, so close I could feel his breath on my face. And in a voice that barely reached a whisper, he said, "You broke your smile." That was it. He grabbed the back of my neck and pulled me toward the freezer. The freezer was like a tomb. The cold metal, the sound of the door shutting behind us. It was all too real. It was too much. And then Daniel went into full beast mode. He paced around me like a predator circling its prey, his forced smile never fading. It didn't even look human anymore. "You don't make mistakes here," he growled. "Not after I trained you. If you fail, I fail. Corporates won't eat me alive because of you. You get me?" I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. He shoved me against the metal shelf, and I felt my cheeks stick to the frozen surface. The cold was unbearable, and the pain in my wrist flared up as he pulled out a metal rod from his pocket. It was the kind used to check the temperature of the meat. He pressed it against my wrist. The cold shot through me, and I couldn't help but scream. But the freezer swallowed my voice, muffling it. Daniel stared at me with that same twisted smile, as if my pain was some kind of sick entertainment for him. My knees buckled beneath me, but he yanked me back up by the collar. His hands were shaking now. His forced smile was twitching, spasming like it was no longer part of him. It wasn't about the rules anymore. It wasn't about keeping the brand intact. This was something darker, something twisted. "You work until it hurts. That's the job. You work," he repeated over and over, like a mantra, a broken record. He shoved me again, this time into a box of frozen beef. The force knocked the wind out of me. My body was burning, but I swung my arm at him, desperate to get free. It wasn't enough to hurt him, but it caught him off guard. For a split second, I saw something like fear in his eyes, like maybe he didn't have control anymore. Then his smile twitched again, harder this time. And in that instant, I knew this wasn't just about control. It was about him breaking us. He grabbed my head and slammed it into the wall. My ears rang. I couldn't hear anything but the pounding in my skull. His hand wrapped around my neck, and I couldn't breathe. "You're not leaving." I tried to speak, but I couldn't. I couldn't move. Then I heard it. The sound of the door crashing open. Someone was there. I kicked the freezer door with everything I had left. It flew open with a bang. Marlon and 2 other workers rushed in. They still had fake smiles on their faces, but I saw something else in their eyes. They were done. They were done pretending. Marlon was holding a heavy fry tray. Without hesitation, he swung it and hit Daniel in the shoulder. Daniel stumbled back. His smile was still there, but his face twisted in anger. They rushed him. Daniel swung the metal rod, but it barely made contact. One of the workers got a cut on his arm. Marlon pushed him into the shelves, and boxes of frozen food came crashing down. The kitchen erupted in chaos. I crawled toward the door, gasping for air. I saw Marlon slam the fry tray into Daniel's chest. The others held him down. It was all happening so fast. I never used to think much about fast food places. They were just there, part of the landscape. A place to grab fries when we didn't feel like cooking after a long day, or somewhere the kids begged to stop when we were running errands. Nothing special, nothing scary. But that was before last October, before the night that carved a permanent line through my life. Everything before it on one side, and everything after on the other. And it all started in the most ordinary, painfully normal way. I had picked up my daughter Avery along with her 3 closest friends, Callie, Tara, and Luna, after their weekend soccer scrimmage. They weren't on a school team. It was more of a local league thing, but they treated it like the Olympics. And honestly, they had played damn well that day. It was one of those crisp fall evenings in Redfield Springs, a quiet town tucked off the highway in Ohio, the kind of place with a single movie theater, a Walmart supercenter that locals treated like a mall, and a couple of fast food joints spaced out along Ridgeview Road. Dang. Did you see that last shot? Callie said from the back seat. Girl, you kicked that ball like you were mad at it, Tara added. Kicked it. I saved it, Luna chimed in proudly. Avery nudged me. Mom, can we stop somewhere? We're starving. You're always starving, I teased. But yeah, you guys did great today. I'll treat you. All four girls cheered loud enough to make me laugh and wince at the same time. Wendy's? Avery said immediately. Yes, the others echoed like a choir. Wendy's on Ridgeview Road was one of those older ones. Brick exterior, faded signage, but still busy on weekends. I didn't think twice about heading there. Why would I? It was familiar, predictable, safe, or so I believed. We pulled into the lot around 6:45 p.m. The sun had just dipped low enough to paint the parking spaces in long shadows. Some teenagers were hanging near the corner on skateboards. An older couple walked out holding Frosties, and a middle-aged guy in a neon vest was sweeping the outside entryway. Totally normal, completely harmless. Inside, though, it felt colder than usual. Not temperature-wise, just vibe-wise. Something about it was off. Maybe it was the hum of the lights that flickered at the far end of the dining area, or maybe it was the group of quiet men sitting near the back, all wearing work boots and jackets that didn't match the warm weather that day. Still, nothing screamed danger, just odd. The girls rushed into a booth beside the window, shoving each other playfully while still buzzing with the adrenaline of their win. I stepped up to the counter. A young cashier, about 19, with a nose ring and tired eyes, forced a polite smile. Hey there, welcome to Wendy's, she said. What can I get started for you? I ordered burgers, nuggets, fries, and shakes. The usual celebration dinner, as Avery called it. While I waited, I glanced back at the girls. They were laughing so hard over some inside joke that Callie nearly fell out of the booth. That's karma for stealing my fry last week, Avery said. Ma'am, she lies, Tara told me dramatically. No, she totally stole it, Luna insisted. Callie threw her hands up. It was one French fry. Their laughter filled the room. It made me smile. That was the last moment everything felt normal. The food wasn't ready yet. I wandered back toward the booth, sliding into the seat beside Avery. I happened to glimpse out the window, and that's when I saw him. A tall man, mid-40s maybe, wearing a gray hoodie with the sleeves dirty and frayed. He was standing by an old blue Chevy Suburban, hunched over something inside the open trunk. His movements were frantic, jittery, almost panicked as he shifted objects around. Yo, what's he doing? Tara asked, noticing where I was looking. Probably just grabbing a jacket, Avery said. But he wasn't grabbing a jacket. He was messing with equipment. Metal canisters, tubes, wires. It made my stomach tighten. He turned suddenly and scanned the parking lot like he thought someone was watching him. His eyes swept across the outside, then snapped toward our window. And then, he looked directly at me. Not just a glance, not just someone noticing another person. He latched onto me with a stare that made the air feel like ice water. His jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed, dark, exhausted, and angry. I broke eye contact quickly, pretending to look at the menu board behind the girls. Mom, you okay? Avery whispered. Yeah, I lied. Just zoning out. But my gut screamed, something is wrong. Something is very, very wrong. He came inside 5 minutes later. The bell above the door chimed, the girls kept laughing, and I turned automatically toward the sound. The same man from the parking lot stepped in, but now he had a different energy, like he was trying too hard to look normal. He walked with stiff shoulders, kept his hands in his hoodie pockets, and avoided eye contact with everyone. The cashier greeted him. Hey, welcome. What can I get for you? He mumbled something I couldn't hear and paid in cash. His hands trembled slightly as he passed the bills across the counter. He chose a seat at the far end of the restaurant, 2 tables away from the flickering light. Every few seconds his eyes darted around the room, at me, at the girls, at the door. My heart tapped a nervous beat in my chest. Mom, you're doing that face, Avery said. What face? The I'm worried but trying not to freak out face. The girls all nodded in agreement. I forced a breathy laugh. I'm fine, eat your fries. But I wasn't fine, not even a little. About 10 minutes passed. The girls inhaled their food. Nuggets drenched in sauce, fries disappearing by the fistful. Milkshakes gulped like they'd never eaten before. I checked my phone for a moment, barely a few seconds. And in those few seconds, I heard a chair scrape loudly on the floor. I looked up. The man from the back had stood abruptly, knocking his chair sideways. His hands shook so violently, he had to shove them back into his pockets. His breathing was loud, ragged. He didn't throw away his food, didn't say a word. He just rushed toward the door like he suddenly remembered something urgent. The bell chimed as he practically slammed into the exit. A couple eating near the soda machine frowned. "What's his deal?" the husband muttered. "No clue," his wife replied. I watched the man sprint toward his Suburban. He dropped something metallic that clanged on the pavement but didn't stop to pick it up. He threw himself into the driver's seat, started the engine, and sped out of the lot so fast the tires squealed. That was when my stomach flipped inside out. Something in me whispered, "Get the girls. Leave. Now." I opened my mouth, and the world exploded. It wasn't like in movies. There was no warm fireball or dramatic slow motion. There was a violent white flash, a shockwave so brutal it felt like the air itself punched through my chest, and a sound so loud it swallowed every other noise in the universe. Then, darkness. The booth slammed sideways. The window shattered inward. The table crushed down onto my legs and ribs. Something sharp tore through my shoulder. I didn't hear screams at first, only a high-pitched ringing that made it impossible to tell if I was breathing or dying. Then voices filtered in, muffled, scattered. "Help! Somebody get 911! Oh my God, there are kids!" My eyes opened slowly. Dust and smoke blurred everything. My ears buzzed violently. Avery?" I croaked, barely a whisper. I felt small hands gripping my jacket. Mom, get up!" Avery sobbed, her voice shaking. "Please get up, Mom, please!" I forced my eyes to focus. Avery's face streaked with soot. Her cheek was bleeding. Her hands trembled against my arm. Behind her, Luna was crying hysterically. Tara held her ankle, screaming that it hurt. Callie was coughing uncontrollably, crawling out from under a broken table. They were alive. They were hurt. Badly. But alive. My body wanted to collapse again, but something stronger pushed me through the pain. "Girls, out," I whispered. "You have to get out, now." "I'm not leaving you," Avery cried. "You have to," I forced out. My vision dimmed. My ears still rang, but I pushed the table off me inch by inch until I could pull myself upward. That's when I saw the side of the Wendy's. Half the wall was gone. The explosion had come from the parking lot, toward the back of the restaurant. Cars were burning, metal twisted, smoke pouring upward like black storm clouds. People were dragging others out. Sirens echoed somewhere in the distance. My legs gave out. Everything went black again. I woke up in a hospital bed with thick bandages wrapped around my ribs, my head aching like it was filled with broken glass, and my left arm immobilized in a sling. My husband, Dylan, sat beside me. His eyes were red. His jaw was tight. His hands clasped mine like he thought I might disappear. When he saw me open my eyes, he broke. "Oh, thank God, baby, thank God," he whispered, leaning his forehead against my hand. "What happened?" I croaked. "The girls. Are they okay?" He closed his eyes. His lips trembled. "They're alive," he whispered shakily. "They're bruised, some burns, nothing life-threatening. They're shaken up. Hell, everybody's shaken up. But they're gonna be okay." I exhaled a broken breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "And me?" I asked. "You were knocked out for 2 days. Concussion, broken ribs, burn on your shoulder. The doctors say you're lucky. Really, really lucky." My eyes filled with tears. "What caused it?" I whispered. "Gas leak? Electrical?" Dylan hesitated. "What?" I demanded weakly. He swallowed. I never imagined a place as ordinary as a Wendy's could change the way I looked at the world forever. People always assume horror comes from shadows, forests, abandoned hospitals, places with a reputation. But the truth is, the scariest things happen in places where you least expect them, where you're supposed to feel safe. For me, that place was the Wendy's on Hillgrove Parkway, tucked between a gas station and a rundown strip mall in Ridgewood, Illinois. I had been working there for almost 6 years, climbing my way from the fry station to shift leader and eventually night manager. I wasn't proud of the job, but it paid my bills, and honestly, after everything I'd lived through, the quiet monotony of a fast food joint was the closest thing I had to peace, or so I thought. Tonight would prove I'd been wrong, so very wrong. "Yo, Lex." I looked up from counting the register drawer. It was Rodney, our fry cook, mid-20s, always cracking jokes, always wearing that dumb beanie, even though the corporate told him 100 times to take it off. He leaned over the counter. "You want to check the walk-in before I dip? I swear something smells funky in there," I scoffed. "Rod, everything smells funky in here. It's Wendy's." He laughed, then gave a dramatic bow. "Touché, boss lady, but seriously, something's off. Might be a busted case of patties." I sighed. "All right, I'll take a look." The other two closers, Jenny and Luis, were already out back smoking before heading home. It was 12:03 a.m., technically after hours. Only the drive-thru was open, and even that would shut down at 1 a.m. Rodney clocked out, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and raised 2 fingers at me. "Peace out, Lex. Don't let any raccoons eat you." "Raccoons aren't what I'm worried about," I muttered. He froze halfway to the door. "Huh?" "Nothing," I said quickly. "Just tired." He squinted at me. "You good, though? You ain't been yourself. Just go home, Rod." He frowned but nodded. 8. Text me if you need anything." The second he left, the store felt bigger, emptier, too quiet. I hated quiet. Quiet left room for memories. Memories I spent years trying to bury. People think night shift workers are night owls. Wrong. A lot of us choose nights because daytime feels too loud, too exposed, too dangerous. When I was 19, I survived a home invasion. 2 men broke in at 3 a.m. while I was asleep. My mom was working a double shift. I was alone. They didn't steal anything. They just stood over my bed, watching, breathing. To this day, I can't sleep unless all the lights are on. Daylight feels worse, too open, too many shadows I can't control. So night shifts, they used to feel safe, predictable, until tonight shattered that illusion forever. I walked to the walk-in cooler and swung the heavy metal door open. Cold air rushed out, raising goosebumps on my arms. Everything looked normal, boxes stacked neatly, shelves stocked. But then, tap, 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 a soft sound, like fingers tapping on metal. I turned fast, expecting someone behind me. No one. "Probably the compressor," I whispered to myself. But the sound had been too deliberate, too human. I backed out of the cooler, shut the door, and locked it. We never locked the cooler, but something deep inside me said to do it. I checked my phone. 12:11 a.m. 1 more hour. Just 1 more hour until I could leave. I walked toward the front counter when the drive-thru headset beeped. A voice crackled through, low, scratchy, unnatural. "Hello?" I froze. "Welcome to Wendy's. How can I—" I stopped. The voice on the other end whispered, "Don't turn around." My blood iced. "What?" I whispered. Another whisper, this time right behind me. "Don't turn around." I spun so fast I nearly slipped, but no one was there. The headset beeped again. Silence. I ripped it off and threw it onto the counter. "Hell no," I muttered, backing away. I grabbed my cleaning rag and pretended to wipe counters so my shaking hands wouldn't be obvious. To who, I didn't know. The parking lot outside was empty, except for a dark SUV parked at the far edge. No headlights, no interior light, no movement. Just there, watching. At 12:27 a.m., someone knocked on the locked front doors. I jumped a foot. It was a man, early 40s maybe, bald, stocky, wearing a gray hoodie. His eyes were too wide, too bright, reflecting the fluorescent lights above him. I pointed to the drive-thru window, mouthing, "We're closed!" He shook his head violently and pointed at the door handle. Then he lifted his hoodie sleeve and showed his forearm. I gasped. There were deep scratches, fresh, bleeding, running up his arm like someone had clawed him. He mouthed, "Help me." My instincts warred inside me. Open the door, call the police, hide. I stepped closer to the glass. "You okay?" I mouthed. He shook his head rapidly, looking over his shoulder like someone or something was chasing him. Then, with terror twisting his features, he said out loud through the glass, "Please, she's inside." "She? Who?" I mouthed. He didn't answer. He just backed away slowly, eyes fixed on something behind me. I turned. Nothing. When I looked back at him, he was gone. Just gone. No running footsteps, no car sound, no shadow, nothing. I rushed to the office and dialed 911. No dial tone. What the hell? The lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. Then the grill switched on by itself, metal popping as it heated. The soda machine hissed, spewing syrup. The frosty machine rumbled violently. I backed into the prep table. Nope, no. The drive-thru bell chimed. Ding. Then again. Ding, ding, ding. like someone was circling the building, passing the sensor over and over. Then the headset, lying on the counter, crackled back to life. Heavy breathing, slow, wet, ragged. "Stop," I whispered. "Just stop." Then the voice returned, a woman's voice, soft, croaky, like vocal cords rubbed raw. "Lex." My stomach dropped. No customer knew my name. "Lex, open the door," she cooed. I shook violently. "Who is this?" I shouted. Silence. Then, "I didn't forget you." I nearly vomited. That voice, that tone, it jolted a memory I'd buried deep, a memory from the night of the home invasion. One of the intruders had whispered in my ear while I pretended to be asleep, paralyzed with terror. A woman's voice. "You're awake, aren't you? I see your eyes moving." I had never told anyone there was a woman in the house that night. Never. But that same voice, that same tone, it was here. I stumbled toward the break room when I heard it. Footsteps, slow, dragging, bare feet slapping against tile, coming from the storage hall. I ducked behind the prep table, heart clawing at my ribs. The footsteps entered the kitchen. A shadow stretched across the floor. A woman's silhouette. Long hair, thin frame, head tilted unnaturally to the side. She whispered, "Lex, chicks." I clamped both hands over my mouth. She shuffled closer. Her breathing labored. Something wet dripped onto the floor. Then, the power cut out. Total darkness. I let out a small, accidental gasp. Her head snapped toward the sound. Then, she ran. Fast. Right toward me. I screamed and crawled away blindly. My hand slipped on spilled soda and grease. My knee hit metal. Something sliced my palm. I scrambled into the office, slammed the door, and locked it seconds before something slammed into it from the other side. I stumbled backward onto the floor as the door shook violently. "Lex!" she shrieked. "Let me in!" I sobbed, hands over my ears. "Go away, please!" She laughed. Not a normal laugh. A distorted, broken, choking sound. "Let me in, sweetheart. You let me in once before." I shook my head wildly. "No, I didn't. That wasn't me." "You looked right at me," the voice rasped. "No, no, no!" I backed into the desk. "That night, I never saw your face." She chuckled again. "Yes, you did." Something slid under the office door. A finger. Gray. Swollen. Old. It stopped at my shoe. I screamed so loud my throat ripped. The pounding on the door stopped. Silence. Dead. Awful silence. Then, a whisper, right behind me. "You should have told someone." I spun around. Nothing there. But the office felt colder. Darker. I grabbed a stapler. Pathetic weapon, but it was something. An inch toward the door. I pressed my ear to it. Silence. I cracked it open. The restaurant was pitch black. The emergency lights weren't on. That meant someone had cut the backup fuse. My hands shook as I stepped into the hallway. Everything was still. Then, a soft drip. Water? Soda? No. Blood. A thin trail led from the storage hallway toward the dining area. I followed it, every nerve screaming at me to stop. When I reached the front counter, I saw something lying on the tile. A wig. Long black hair. Tangled. Old. Beside it, a blood-stained hoodie. I crouched down. The fabric was familiar. Gray hoodie. Scratches on the sleeves. The man from earlier. He wasn't being chased by someone else. He was running from her. He knew she was inside, and he left me here with her. "Lex." Her voice drifted from the dining room. I jerked my head up. A figure stood on top of one of the tables. Small, thin, unsteady. The emergency lights flickered on for a second, long enough for me to see her. Her skin was grayish, her eyes sunken, dried blood on her chin. Her head tilted sharply, like her neck had once been broken. "Don't be scared," she whispered. "I am scared," I choked out. "Good." She leapt from the table straight onto me. We crashed against the soda machine. I felt her fingers, cold, bony, dig into my throat. "You saw me," she hissed. "You pretended not to." I clawed at her wrists, gasping. "I was 19. I didn't know what to do." "You watched me die," she croaked. "What? I never—" She slammed my head against the machine. "Your mom called the cops," she screeched. "They trapped us in the house. I hid in the walls. They left me. She left me." Her tears dripped onto my face, thick, dark red. "You let me die." "I didn't know," I sobbed. She grabbed my jaw. "I've been looking for you." I saw something then, behind her. Movement, a shadow, and then a metal object swung down, smashing into her skull. She collapsed on top of me. I gasped for air, vision blurring. Standing above me was Rodney. "Holy, Lex, are you okay?" he shouted, dropping the fire extinguisher. I coughed violently. "Rod, why are you—" "I forgot my wallet," he gasped. "I swear the second I opened the door, I heard screaming. What the hell is going on?" I looked down. The woman's body was gone. Only the wig and hoodie remained. Rodney backed away. Lex, where's the lady you were fighting?" I stared at the empty floor, my chest heaving. "I don't know," I whispered. But deep down, I did. She wasn't human. Not anymore. Maybe never. Rodney helped me stand. "We're getting the hell out of here." We sprinted out the back door, into the parking lot, into the cold night air. As he fumbled for his keys, I looked back at Wendy's. In one of the dark windows, a face stared out. Her face. Smiling. Waiting. Watching. The police came. We gave statements. They searched the entire restaurant. They found nothing. No blood. No wig. No hoodie. No signs of forced entry. They acted like I had imagined the entire thing. Maybe I would have believed that too. Except for one thing. On the passenger seat of my car, tucked under the seatbelt, was a small object. A mummified finger, wrapped in a slip of paper that said, "I'll see you when the lights go out." I quit the next morning. I moved, changed my number. But at night, when the house is quiet, sometimes I hear her voice in the vents. "Lex." And I know she's still out there. Somewhere. Waiting for me to let my guard down. Waiting for the lights to go out. I never imagined a job at a fast food place could change the way I viewed the world, but the night everything happened at the Wendy's on Briar Ridge Highway still haunts me every single time I close my eyes. My name is Evan Mallory, and in the fall of 2022, I was working late-night shifts to save up money to move out of my mom's house. Briar Ridge wasn't the worst town in the world, but it wasn't exactly a place people were proud to be from. Factories shutting down, an opioid epidemic nobody talked about openly, long stretches of farmland separating pockets of broken neighborhoods. If you weren't careful, you could live here your whole life and never get out. I worked at the Wendy's on the edge of town, the one near the abandoned lumber yard. The store wasn't very big, and the parking lot lights flickered at random like they never decided if they wanted to stay alive. During the day it looked normal, but at night, something about it felt wrong. The highway beside us was long and empty, and you could see headlights coming from miles away, but you never heard them until they were right at your door. It was the kind of place where if something bad were to happen, nobody would even know until morning. I only worked nights because my manager, Tina, liked hiring high school and college kids for the day shift, claiming that they smile more. She was in her early 50s, smoked half a pack a night, and had been at Wendy's longer than I'd been alive. She wasn't mean, but she had this tiredness in her face that made you feel like she'd seen things nobody should ever have to see. The assistant manager, Ronnie, was the opposite. Loud, dramatic, full of energy that seemed unnatural for someone who drank 4 energy drinks a night. He tried to be funny, but he wasn't. Still, he talked so much that sometimes you were forced to laugh just to shut him up. And then there was Mia, the only reason I ever came to work with a smile. She was smart, sarcastic, and pretty in a way she didn't realize. She worked the drive-through window most nights, and her voice could turn any customer calm, even when they acted like jerks. She was the type of person you wanted around when things got weird, because she never panicked. At least, that's what I thought. The night everything happened was a Tuesday in October. Cold, quiet, and the kind of dark that looked thicker than usual. I remember the shift feeling off before anything even happened. We were short-staffed, just me on the grill, Mia on the drive-through, and Tina doing prep. Ronnie had called out, claiming he was sick, though he posted Snapchat videos from a bar 2 hours later. Typical Ronnie. Things were normal for the first few hours. A couple of truckers, some late-night high school kids, one drunk woman who tried to order Taco Bell because she thought she was in the wrong place. But around 11:30 p.m., just as we switched over to the late-night menu, the intercom crackled. Evan?" Mia called from the drive-through window. "You need to come listen to this." I wiped my hands on my apron and walked over. The headset was hanging around her neck, and she was staring toward the menu board with this uneasy look I'd never seen on her face. "What's up?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just placed the headset onto my ears and gestured for me to listen. At first I only heard static, but then someone began whispering. Not talking, not asking for food, whispering. "Is anyone in there?" The voice was faint, breathy, shaky, like someone who hadn't spoken in days. I pressed the talk button. Wendy's on Briar Ridge, go ahead." There was silence for several seconds, and then the whisper returned, quieter this time. "I need help." I felt a chill rush down my arms. "Sir or ma'am, are you hurt?" No response. I looked at Mia. Her face was pale. "It started about a minute before I got you," she whispered. "He kept saying someone was following him." My stomach tightened. "Did he pull up yet?" "No, there's nobody at the menu board." Suddenly, the voice whispered again, this time slightly louder. "Don't go outside, please." The intercom cut to static immediately after. Mia flinched. I ripped off the headset. "That wasn't a prank," she said quietly. No, it wasn't." We both stood there, frozen, staring out the drive-through window at the empty menu board glowing against the darkness. Then the headlights appeared. Slow. Too slow. Like the car was barely moving. A rusted green sedan rolled into view, stopping beneath the menu screen. The front bumper was dented, one headlight broken, and the engine sputtered like it was choking. The windows were so dirty you couldn't see inside. The intercom beeped again, but there was no voice. Just breathing. Deep, labored breathing. "Sir," Mia said cautiously, "can you pull forward to the first window?" More breathing, and then, "Don't make me come inside." We all heard it, even Tina, who had walked up behind us without speaking. "That guy needs to leave," she whispered. But the car didn't move. The breathing grew louder, ragged, uneven, almost desperate. I stepped back. "This doesn't feel right." Tina locked the front doors without saying anything. She'd always been strict about safety, but now she looked actually scared. The green sedan finally rolled forward to the window. Slowly. Too slowly. The driver's window was rolled down just an inch, just enough for air. Mia didn't lean forward. She didn't even move. "Sir, your total is..." Something slid through the gap in the window. A note. A small, crumpled piece of yellow paper, held between two shaking fingers. I took it from the window shelf without looking inside the car. The hand trembled violently before disappearing back inside. The window rolled halfway up. I stared at the note. My hands didn't want to open it, but I did, and I wish I never had. Inside, written in messy, frantic handwriting, "There is someone in my backseat. Don't open your doors." I froze. Mia gasped. Tina covered her mouth. I looked up at the sedan. The backseat windows were pitch black. Too dark. "Mia," I whispered, "do not lean toward that car." She stepped back immediately. We watched the driver's silhouette turn his head toward us. Slow, shaky, like it hurt him. I could barely see the outline of his face, but he looked exhausted, terrified, eyes wide and glassy. He mouthed something. 2 words. "Help me." Before any of us could react, the backseat door on the passenger side opened, but no one got out. The door just opened. The driver stiffened like he'd been stabbed. "Back up!" I shouted. Mia grabbed my arm. Tina whispered, "Dear God." The driver didn't turn, didn't speak, didn't move. Something was in the back seat, and it was watching us. The sedan suddenly lurched forward, stopping halfway into the parking lot. The back door was still open. The driver slammed his hands against the wheel, screaming silently, like he wanted to yell, but something wouldn't let him. And then, a shadow moved inside the car. Not a person, not a shape I recognized. Something too tall to fit in the seat. Something hunched and wrong. Its head rose slowly from the darkness. Mia screamed and stumbled back. The shadow leaned toward the driver, and the man began pounding on his window in pure terror, looking at us as if begging us to do something. But what could we do? The sedan swayed. Something grabbed the driver. His body jerked violently. He clawed at the glass. A muffled choke escaped his throat. Then his face slammed against the window, smearing blood across the glass. Call 911, Tina yelled. I already had my phone out, but the second I dialed, the shadow pulled the driver backward with impossible force. He vanished into the darkness of the back seat. The car went still. The back door slowly closed on its own.